Hi, I'm Jennifer Isabella.
And I'm Srividya Sridharan.
Your co-host for Forrester's podcast, What It Means, where we explore the latest market dynamics impacting executives and their customers. Today, we're joined by VP and Principal Analyst Barbie Mattie to discuss Forrester's 2023 planning guide for B2B marketing executives and the budgeting decisions that will best set them up for success. Welcome, Barbie.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, as a B2B marketing executive, we've all been here before in the midst of a potential economic downturn, making budgeting decisions, weighing options. But is there something different about this moment in time that executives should be paying attention to as they're in the midst of planning and budgeting?
Well, that's a great question. And we started by just always deferring back to what our executive priorities are. So we've identified what CMOs and marketing leaders must do to run the business. And so keeping that in mind and planning for 2023, we started with a hypothesis. And the hypothesis that we were setting out to prove or disprove was that because of this prolonged, unpredictable global economy, people might be forced into making a decision that satisfies the expectations of now and budget cuts now and just doing things now and sacrificing all of the work that's been done to date, as well as everything that is you can gain traction from going forward. So the hypothesis that we started with when we went into planning is that our customers, our marketing executives, they're going to be subject to unprecedented budget scrutiny and justification. They're going to have to account for every penny for what they want to spend and why and what results can be expected. So that's kind of the premise for what we were setting out to prove, is that hypothesis that led our planning guide. What's unique is that there isn't any room to experiment this year. You have to go back to what you know works. And if you don't know, that was the approach that we took when we came out with our planning guidelines, because if you don't have the data, you don't have confidence in the data that you have. We, as a Forrester, we have data. So we defaulted to, what does the data tell us how companies ended up able to grow in these past 2 years? What have they done? Where did they invest? What did they put their money towards?
So Barbie, that's a tough message, right? I mean, there's not much room for error. There's not much buffer. Given that backdrop, one of the phrases that I loved in the planning guide was essentially what we are recommending to B2B CMOs is spend money to make money. And just, can you dig into that a little bit, given the backdrop, how that's going to be a tough pill to swallow. So give us a little bit of context there.
We're saying spend money to make money, but we're saying we know where you should spend it. And so what we did is we looked at our data and we looked at all companies that have more than 1,000 employees. And we just kind of lumped that as enterprise companies. And then what we did within that subset of the data, we divided that into companies that were flat to declining for the past 2 years in annual revenue. And then we compared it to the other end of the spectrum from a bookend perspective. And we compared flat to declining companies to companies that actually managed to grow their annual revenue greater than 20% over the past 2 years.
So Barbie, we looked at high growth companies, we looked at, enterprises, we looked at kind of the track record of, what they have invested in traditionally and why, they were high growth companies in the last 2 years. Can you dig a little bit into which are the areas that CMOs should be spending strategically this year, given what we've historically seen where they have been spending?
Yeah, that's a great question. And just to level set on kind of the budget hierarchy that we look at, we can account for how every corporation tracks their budget. So we kind of did, the law of averages. And so marketing expense as a percentage of revenue is the highest level. Within there, Forrester looks at data across how marketing leaders are investing in programs, personnel, technology, and outsourcing. And then nested under programs, which is one of the key points and recommendations that we're making to our executive clients this year, is that within that program budget of reputation, demand, enablement, engagement, and operations, we're saying you have to strive for balance across those program families, because traditionally marketers have been over-indexing in the demand category, and there needs to be more of a balance across the other reputation, demand, enablement, engagement, and operations. So within that hierarchy, what we looked at is how did flat to declining companies allocate what they put towards marketing as a percentage of revenue, and then what did high growth companies do. So from a budgetary perspective, we know from the data, it validates the spend money to make money paradox that we're saying, because high growth companies, over half of them, 51%, invested 6.1 to 9% of marketing as an expense of revenue. So I get calls on budget all the time. I tend to work with the more nascent marketing organizations. So they're just fighting to go from 2% to 3% marketing as a percentage of revenue. And then I work on the other end of the spectrum where people are like, customers are, well, I'm hearing 12 to 15% is right. Well, okay, let's follow what the high growth companies are, not over budget, not under budget, and just fall in the middle with that somewhere between 6.1 to 9% of revenue marketing as a percentage of revenue for your budget for 2023.
And so within the program families, I think you were getting to, what are the investment areas within the program family itself?
So from a program perspective, what we're seeing is high growth companies within a couple of points of plus or minus. Reputation budget is going up. The enablement budget is going up, which is how you equip your sellers. And then the most significant increase that we're seeing is with the engagement budget. And what we mean when we say engagement budget, that's the budget allocated towards post-sale customer engagement. And so the companies that were able to thrive during the past couple of years, they knew that 2 years ago, that post-sale customer engagement was critical for their success. And the data is showing that they're going to continue to increase budget in that engagement piece. And then the flat to declining companies are realized that they have neglected it too long, and it's now a problem. So they're also investing in engagement as well, because they didn't do it sooner.
Mm-hmm. And what's interesting about this is you mentioned reputation. I imagine that includes focus on brand, which is a bit of a counterintuitive thing, right? Where there is always a temptation to pull back on sort of brand initiatives in a tight environment. So can you give a little bit of color around why? Why are we seeing that continue?
Brand is becoming so important to companies these days because of the decision power that customers have. And not only is it customer related, but it's employee related as well. So people are only going to go work for companies that align with their values. Customers are only going to buy from companies that align with their values. A purpose-driven brand, which is the second most important priority to high growth companies for the following year, a purpose-driven brand is going to help connect the brand to the demand efforts that are being executed.
Also helpful in a tight labor market, right? With your retention and acquisition efforts too. So just interesting that that's coming to the fore when we think about marketing planning and for 23.
It's so interconnected, and it all ties back to being truly obsessed with your customers. So we have the data that I'm talking to today is our 2022 B2B marketing survey data. We have customer obsession data that validates the same things that I'm saying. We have brand purpose data that all of it is coming together. And don't be surprised if this isn't one of our predictions for next year.
Absolutely. So you've given, B2B CMOs and marketing executives something to chew on in terms of where to invest, balancing out kind of the program budget across, reputation and engagement. What are some of the challenges that you anticipate them facing while they're investing in those areas? Whether they're internal, getting people on board, whether they're external forces. What are some of those challenges that you think they might face?
Yeah, I do want to back up a little bit and just mention what the three most important priorities are for high growth companies. They are to address changing buying behaviors. Said another way, that's how you tie all of the program families together through an integrated campaign approach. The second most important priority I mentioned earlier, which is the implement a purpose-driven brand. And then the third most important priority is focusing on post-sale customer engagement. So the way we ask our survey question is, what priorities are most important to you in support of the company strategy from a marketing perspective? And those three were the top three. And then we say, well, what's going to be a challenge for you to make that happen? And so a challenge related to how high growth companies plan to address changing buying behaviors is their brand perception does not reflect their desired corporate identity. So we're not saying go out and do a bunch of brand refreshes or anything like that. We're saying just use that mindset of a purpose-driven brand to make sure that how your employees and you feel about your company is reflected on the outside and what you say about your company as well. And just to present the counterpoint, that's the number one biggest challenge for high growth companies. That doesn't even show up in the top 5 for flat to declining companies because they're just not even there yet. They're more worried about brand awareness than perception.
Yeah, and one of the areas we wrote about in the planning guide is also kind of data management and customer data, sourcing from various sources. This is a key challenge. Is that something that you're seeing in your client conversations where to do all of that planning, to do all of that measurement, all of that rests in good data. So what are you hearing there in terms of investments in the customer data space?
That was actually one of our top recommendations in our planning guide. It's worth every penny, every resource, every effort to wrangle and normalize all of your customer data so you have a single view of the customer. We're also on the tech side of the house seeing a lot of uptick in CDP platforms, customer data platforms. So, for next year, CMOs, your best friend for 2023 is your head of marketing ops. They're going to help you navigate through this spend money to make money paradox with confidence.
Well, and let's dig in a little bit deeper on the tech investment front, right? You mentioned, potentially CDP if you don't have that, or how we structure data and kind of have a single view of the customer. But I'm assuming there may be other technology investments to, continue firms and leaders on their growth path.
Rather than just recommending a tool to answer your question, Jen, I would love to refer people back to this notion of there's 6 essential technologies that every company has to have in place in order for you to have a revenue technology engine or a technology revenue engine. And they're not platforms or tools or specific brand names, but they're capabilities. So yeah, there's 6 essential technologies that all companies need to make sure they have in place before they go and start investigating any other technology purchases for 2023. The 6 essential technologies are you have to have a Salesforce automation layer. That is your bottom layer. That is your source of truth. Laddering up to the next level, you have sales intelligence and marketing analytics. None of these have to be dedicated tools, but you have to have the capabilities or the functionality to do that task. Then you have sales engagement. sellers are engaging with the content that's being produced, more efficiency and performance. And then the fifth layer spans across marketing automation. So you have marketing automation as your orchestration tool as well as your delivery mechanism. And then the sixth essential technology is some sort of content platform, not platform, technology. So then it's served. So those six, if those are whole, then you would want to go and figure out the next technology to purchase once those are in place.
So what you're really saying, quite kind of going back to where we started on the room for experimentation when it comes to tech is actually quite limited. So now is not the time to get attracted by the new shiny object in the market?
I would say buy the tech that supports how your company plans to grow, and is supported by an outcome-focused approach to selecting technology. There is a Forrester report that's available called The 3 Secrets to Designing a Revenue Engine Tech Stack that Aligns to How Your Company Plans to Grow. And so that's one of those, do not stop, do not pass go, do not collect $200 if you don't have these 6 essential technologies in place, because it doesn't, when you pick the technology and then back into the business requirements, well, not only does it perpetuate tech sprawl, but it puts the tech in charge of how you run your company. And that's not the optimal way to address tech.
Mm-hmm. So essentially a much more targeted view of, tech selection at this point to really support the core initiatives at this point in time.
Yeah, it's look at the business requirements. Like we're saying, focus on post-sale customer engagement. So start with doing an audit. What do you have in place to drive post-sale customer engagement? Have you completed the onboarding process properly? So focus on the manual, for lack of a better term, processes, and then see where you can apply automation to drive that. That's actually one of our other recommendations is adopt digital approaches to continue to improve everybody's experiences. When I say everybody, I mean your employees, your customers, your partners, all the experiences that can be simplified through a digital approach. That's where it's worth spending your time to look at the processes and see what tech would help solve for making that better.
I think we come to the fun part now. What are we telling them not to do? What are we telling B2B CMOs and marketing executives to cut spending on or divest?
We're not saying divest, so to speak, but what we're really trying to drive home is across all of the program family budget, right? Reputation, demand, enablement, engagement, and operations. Across those 5 budget buckets within your program budget, the demand bucket can't be the highest anymore. So we're saying divest, but not necessarily divesting in demand gen efforts, because that would be horrible advice. But what we're saying is look at the money you're spending towards demand, but make sure that you're shifting the focus towards an opportunity management system rather than focusing on individual lead acquisition. That's one of our big recommendations for customers. And you're going to need your ops leader and your demand leader and your customer engagement leader and all of the other leaders in order to do that. So to reinforce the point, it's all about balance and balancing the budget across the program families so you don't have large spikes in brand and then nothing in demand. You don't have large spikes in operations, but nothing in enablement. So it's a constant reminder to balance your budget across the program families and begin that transition from the net new lead acquisition to how do you manage opportunities. And it benefits marketing leaders to start using that language anyway, because sales uses opportunities in their language. So it facilitates a much better conversation, which drives better alignment. Another area where we are making sure people pay attention to is making sure that there's a go-to-market strategy in place. And when you're doing regionalization and you're doing field marketing outside, from a global perspective, you have the opportunity to reduce waste when you're localizing if you're following a singular go-to-market approach from the onset.
I just want to go back to the point about buying groups and opportunity management and just sort of the shift to lead versus opportunity and what that entails. And so I guess a piece of this, we're talking obviously very specifically to the marketing executive, but doing your planning in conjunction with your core counterparts seems to be so key here, right? I may be stating something so obvious. However, operating in silos is kind of easy to do, but when you're talking about changing how you work and opportunity management and things of that nature, it's just the criticality of connecting with your sales leader seems, we should probably underline that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a really good point, Jen, because for the most part, this is somewhat of a generalization, but people listening to this they'll go, yeah, that's kind of true. But typically, marketing is seen as this branch that's just sitting in a silo and expected to drive pipeline. And what we're trying to do with this shift to opportunity management and aligning with your other functional leaders on the product and the sales side, the revenue engine, and getting that all aligned. So what we're saying is that marketing is a legitimate business partner. They're not some siloed entity that just drives pipeline for sales. And that's kind of the first mental hurdle that the executive team has to get over. And that's why I referenced earlier that the CMO's new best friend for 2023 is going to be their ops leader, because they will come to the table with the data that makes it inarguable for people to say, oh, no, just go drive pipeline and leads. But once there's a general acknowledgement that, hey, no one person makes a B2B purchase. You're always selling B2B to more than one person, unless you have a very low price point and it's transactional. But you are always selling to a group of people. And just shifting from individuals to buying groups, that's a really good alignment exercise across marketing and sales as well. Then aligning it to the needs. Now we're talking about opportunities. And we're using the same language that sales is using, but when we shift over to the opportunity management piece.
So if I were to force your hand, Barbie, you could choose the most important priority for 2023 for B2B marketing executives and leaders, or something to tackle first. Where's your head at?
My guidance is, let's follow the leaders. We have this incredibly insightful data that trends for over 2 years. And we know what companies that have managed to grow over 20% annual revenue have done. So as a starting point, let's just see where you are in regards to achieving those priorities and figure out how they can incorporate into the plans that you already have. It's just, that's number one, the number one thing.
Thanks for that guidance and advice, and thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure.
If you like what you heard today, subscribe to Forrester's What It Means podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or your favorite podcast player. To continue the conversation, follow Forrester on Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn, or drop us a note at podcast@forrester.com. Thanks for listening.